Romney was offered police protection and refused it. We had 21 people voting on the poll this morning. Of the 21 people, well, 21 people in the allotted time, 17 of you said yes, you do believe the police narrative. 4 of you said no, you do not. So 21 people in all voted in the allotted time. Of course, you can continue to vote on this poll throughout the day and through all programming, and we'll give you the final result tomorrow morning, which will be Wednesday and midweek.
Interesting. I don't know. I think if you ask most people what they thought of Jelani prospects options for survival, most people would have a question mark. You ever thought about a path downward that was kind of predictable, unfortunately? Even his brother said his choices were very, very of great concern. You know,
who said this?
His brother. It's in the Express today that he didn't agree with his brother's life choices, and he ended up where he ended up because of his life choices, as can be applied to all of us, quite frankly. I don't know. It's just, to me, we just come to accept that these lives the question is, could we have done anything differently with that young man's life, or any similar end of life stories? You know, I don't know. It's just very, very disturbing.
All right, let's say good morning. Good out to
Recording
Dorothy.
in progress.
Good morning, Dorothy. Good morning, Commissioner, Acting Commissioner of Police, Mr. Jacobs. How are you?
I am okay this morning, feeling well and ready to go.
Lovely.
Managed to get a 5 hours rest into this morning.
That's a long sleep for you. Good morning, Commissioner.
5 hours.
Yeah.
That's a long sleep for you.
Yeah, well, I had a real hectic day yesterday. I fell asleep earlier than I thought. You know, I had plans.
Rest is important. All right. Can you give us an update on the Jelani Romney murder?
Well, you know that investigation is very much active. The homicide investigators from our Region 1 section is doing the investigation in that matter. And that is much as I can say at this point in time. Concerning it is active. And the crime scene officers have processed the scene, and they have to depend on a lot on the scientific evidence and trying to see how the technology in relation to the roadway and whether or not it has CCTV in the area to do the canvassing. A lot of work need to be done there, but they are doing the work that is necessary.
Given the nexus of this young man a couple of months ago to the PC Jilks, Clarence Jilks situation, was he in protective custody? Was he in a witness protection program, I should say? That's the correct term.
No, he, as mentioned by the senior superintendent in charge of the homicide, in fact, it was offered to him. That is what they required to do, and it was refused. And then when the other investigators headed by Senior Superintendent Chandu, who dealt with the other part of the investigation, the offer again was made, and he had refused.
Can you give us why he was offered witness protection?
No, well, he maintained that he felt a bit unsafe, and from the circumstances. So if he's saying that, looking at everything, and there was some perceived threat, as he mentioned, we will offer him that measure of protection.
And how long ago was he offered witness protection?
I said he was offered witness protection in the first form of the inquiry when he was picked up by the homicide department, when he refused. Then another team was doing the other part of the investigation headed by Senior Superintendent Chandu, which was completed about 2 or 3 weeks after the incident. He was again offered by them and he refused.
But Commissioner, the attorney for Jelano Romney is quoted in the media today as saying that his client requested police protection from the police while being interviewed by them, but requested protection from the police while being interviewed by them, but was never given any offer of protection. Is it that you're saying that his attorney is being inaccurate? Because those are two competing narratives.
Yes. No, all I can say that at the time is not just yesterday with the comments made by my senior superintendent homicide and the information received from Mr. Chandu. All they did to me yesterday when they spoke with me was to confirm what I knew, what I was told since when the incident occurred. So I look at proximity of situations. It's not that they are now saying this when this happened. Since when the incident happened, the senior superintendent had informed me that he had refused. And since before Mr. Chandu and him said that he had refused. So that was since when. So it's not like if it was brought up now. So the question of who lying and who not speaking the truth, you know, as I said, in Trinidad and Tobago, we reach this stage, and I call it Trinidad Analytica approach that is damaging this country. And I am saying that you find over and over persons who we expect to be in particular status and position in this country is doing and saying things, you know, and some of the other, in some instances, is being accepted, even though you're seeing all the factual information existing there. And what they fail to realize that the persons who are on the street, who are on the roadway in the communities are listening in and seeing the high level of dishonesty and behavior of persons who we expect to be persons who we looked up to and the kind of damage it's creating within our society. I call it the intangible damage. So again, I stand firm with my officers in relation to it because of the information that was given to me previous to this particular incident.
So you're saying that Christian J. Williams is being untruthful. He's lying.
I am not dealing with him. I'm dealing with the situation. And y'all can, in fact, surmise whatever you wish from what I am saying. I stand firm with the information given to me by my officers because that was given to me since then. And they reinforced it again when they spoke with me yesterday. And I can assure you, my officers have made the relevant notes like we normally do, you know, in a sequential way of both situations.
Commissioner, you spoke about persons in society, and I hope I'm not paraphrasing wrongly, misleading and making inaccurate statements in the public domain, but you yourself have been subject to inaccurate statements by your officers at the start of this incident, the interaction with Mr. Romney, related to the initial incident.
So when I make my statement, I am not just referring and exempting the police service and officers within the police service. In the police service is a microcosm of the society. And you will find that some of the things that are happening in the general society will happen within the police service. So when I am making my statement, I am even talking to my officers out there also. When we hold positions of authority and what we expect for a level of respect, we got to be careful what we say, you know, and don't try to deceive and behave in a particular manner. So I am talking about generally.
But while the public is expected to be truthful, I agree with you. And disseminate information to the police and authorities about its use. It has even greater implication when officers are untrue because of the wider powers officers have.
Yeah, and it's also and that I call that the tangible aspect with the officers. But we also have persons who hold even more prominent offices within our land. They indeed need to take the same lead that we are trying with our officers and say, here what is happening. You all have an onerous responsibility in this society. You all have the powers of arrest. You all are expected to protect and serve. And the standard that is measured of you all is higher than the normal standard of the normal citizen. In the thought of law, even when you have cases and they look at the reasonable, prudent police officer and they measure it, they will measure it against the reasonable, prudent civilian. They expect you to be a certain standard. The same way they expect that higher standard in relation to a doctor carrying out his work, you understand, a lawyer carrying out his work. The standard that is set for each level is dependent on that responsibility that is given to you within the society and sometimes the powers that is given to you in the society. So we have a program in the service with dealing with ethics that we have, and next year we're going to reinforce it to deal with those said issues that you are referring to. So we are not divorced of those things that I'm talking about. I'm saying that the entire society, we need to look in and see what is happening, because somehow or the other we feel these things are not having an effect on the minds of the young people on the ground who are committing all these violent crimes. If you'll get an opportunity to interview some of these young people and hear what they are saying, they have some of them have a total disrespect for persons in society, not just the police in some instances, but other persons who in prominent positions.
Well, we know about the socialization issues of some young people, unfortunately. If we could move the conversation to just to one of the antecedents to what we're seeing in terms of the criminality in the country, and the statements by the Minister of National Security last week, the JSC National Security, where he focused a lot on, well, we focused a lot on the issue of the legal firearms and consequently the ammunition coming into the country, and how the TTPS is seeking to audit that, if at all, because the Minister of National Security, of course, spoke about the 108 legal firearms that have been associated with some crimes, including 4 murders. But the conversation also widened to ammunition in the country, and in the words of the Minister of National Security, the millions and millions of rounds of ammunition being imported through legal dealers, and your thoughts on that and how the country is managing that.
Well, what is happening coming out of these 2 reports, I have a team of officers which is under the ECP Criminal Division, Assistant Commissioner Criminal Division, coming out from the Professional Standards Bureau, with a combination of one particular officer from each of the 10 divisions join the professional standards. So there's around 30 persons together with 30 persons together with the Professional Standards Bureau, in all its 30, who are actually doing some investigations with our firearm dealers. You know, one of them was charged recently, right? And we are looking to see that, ensure that they have everything organized, they have the relevant documents, and everything is stored properly that is required by law. So that work is going on right now. Our next step when we complete that exercise is to ensure that our security companies and others have their weapons, their ammunition, everything that is organized. We have our persons who are looking within the police service also. So we are dealing with it across the board in relation to dealing with that aspect of the legal aspect of firearms and ammunition. The 108 the minister referred to is data that was supplied to him through our crime and problem analysis branch, and forwarded to him from the commissioners from my office. Those were data, that was data coming out from over a 5-year period. And in fact, 52 of those were persons who were actually robbed of their firearms and end up on the streets. The others is like housebreaking, and some were home invasions, you know, and then we have a few where persons actually lost the firearms. So if we are seeing an increase in that aspect, where we have now 90 licensed firearms, most likely out there in the hands of criminals, right? We now have to tighten up in the way how we deal with legal firearms. And that is the reason why I'm talking about upgrading of the training of the people, advising them how to conceal the firearms, how to carry it, ensuring that it is stored properly at home. Just this week, a retired inspector lost his firearm, where a firearm was taken from him by some drinking place, where the persons walk up to him, held him, and pull it out from his waist, because more than likely, I don't know, it could have been exposed. And that is the point that we are making. We had instances where persons running around the savannah with 2 licensed firearms, and the man shot himself. We have situations where persons with illegal firearms last year in a business place in South seen about the firearm and shot a woman accidentally. So what we are simply saying, we need to tighten up on the way how we deal with illegal firearms. It's not about not issuing firearms to persons, and I constantly is making that clear. There is no intention that once people reach the threshold, they will in fact be issued with the firearm, but we are saying the whole process needs to be tightened up. And I mentioned to the general public, and I'll mention it again. Under my watch, nobody will be being issued with 5, 10, 15, and 20, and 27 firearms, because that is a significant risk. Because when you see that some of the loss of the firearms and how the firearms came in the hands of bandits, it was through housebreaking, through home invasion, right? So therefore, you have somebody with 15 firearms in the house and someone getting there. You know, as I said, some of them have more firearms in some instances than a police force. Is that really and truly promoting safety and security for our country? So I said I will not do that, and I will not be issuing any high-powered weapons to anyone until the government finish do the work that we are doing with looking at the Firearms Act and making the necessary amendments. So there will be ways and means. Very soon I'll be able to produce the data to demonstrate to the general public of how many persons out there who may have high-powered weapons, not the names of the persons, but we need to know. We need to know in the landscape and how many, because it was unusual, right? It was unprecedented that we issuing high-powered rifles to individuals in this country. You know, it was normally handguns. And if you have a rifle association, they will provide it, and when people go on the ranges and things, they will train. But the whole landscape changed because persons look at things differently.
So are you confirming that there had been an exponential rise in the issuance of licenses for high-powered weapons in the country?
Definitely coming out of the audit report and coming out from the report by Justice John, the data and everything there is clear. There was in fact that situation, and the numbers will be provided very soon. The analysts are there doing all the work, because remember, a lot of the things were done manually. So we are now putting things together, so we'll be able to say, right, and we need to know for our own security reasons.
Mr. Commissioner, what as Commissioner, because you are the person legally, constitutionally able to sign off on the granting of a license, a firearm, under what circumstance, what is the threshold for somebody applying for a license for a high-powered weapon that would justify that in this country, if at all?
Well, that is a difficult question. I know the Rifles Association and persons who in the sport of shooting will normally apply for that particular purpose, right? We will want to maintain that our police and our law enforcement officers be of the people who have access to that. But you will have the Rifles Association, which may have a few for the people to use for the purpose of sports.
But if you're saying that there had been a rise that you confirmed a short while ago in the issuance of licenses for high-powered weapons in the country, so is it that more people were in the Hunters Association, the Rifles Association applied for more, or is it that ordinary civilians were just applying and receiving authorization for that?
Well, I would simply say the latter.
You know, Commissioner,
So ordinary citizens were receiving.
I am talking about individuals who don't own no range or anything, or no association, who were in fact issued with these weapons. And I am saying that it creates our security risk on the landscape in Trinidad and Tobago.
But there's so many questions that arise out of what the discussion is around firearms. The issue of the data with regard to the people, you mentioned the data and going through the data to see who has what, etc. Isn't that data computerized and easily accessible, or is it still hard copy?
The reason why some of the things stayed so long and the other things stayed more than 3 months, it went to nearly 6 months, is because a lot of the things are paper-based. The database was not being utilized. So I now have a team of persons putting everything on a database where we can now collate it more efficiently to get the true figures and the names. When they did the audit, they had to have persons supporting them and going through all the paperwork.
And I'm just wondering, Commissioner, why isn't it more, but this is a question for you, as I suppose in a personal capacity and a professional capacity, isn't it more productive for the state to move firearm licenses out of the TTPS and maybe to an accredited body that's set up by the state that deals with firearm licenses and monitoring and computerizing and modernizing it, rather than having the Commissioner of Police bogged down with the issue of who got a firearms license and signing a firearms license? It seems such a kind of pedantic thing to be assigned to a Commissioner of Police and the TTPS, who should be out there fighting crime rather than dealing with who get what license.
Yeah, the Office of Law Enforcement, OLEP, all right, was given the responsibility, I think some months ago, to do a study on that and present that to the Ministry of National Security by the minister concerning that aspect and how changes can be made. In the Jamaica, they have a body that deals with it outside of the police service, even though the police service may have some influence in relation to it. But they have a body, they have an agency that deals with that aspect of the issuance of it. I don't know what will be the outcome of the study that was done and the information that was provided, but I know that they were looking into it to see whether or not that responsibility should still remain in the hands of the police service. You know, there are arguments for and against, and it's just a matter for a decision to be made in which direction we should go. So your thought process is on point in relation to it, and it is really and truly a tremendous, we have to have a whole section dealing with it, and it's not just FULs, FUECs dealing with all the security companies, you know, for licensed dealers. You know, there's a lot of work that need to take place in relation to dealing with firearms. All persons focus on is the FUL or person getting the FUL, but there are several other things that need to be dealt with by the firearms section.
Do we have a sense from the firearms section as to the amount of ammunition that's being imported annually into the country?
Well, you remember, once it comes into the Customs and Excise Department. So we have some data on it, and that is the reason why the minister is actually probably making particular statements. because everything, you have to apply, you have to have you have to have the license, it has to be signed off by the commission, it has to go through the customs and excise. So you have all the paperwork there, so you can get a count of, and in fact there is a count.
We focused a lot on the 108 guns, but the minister also spoke to the issue of the secondary bonded areas where the illegal firearms are coming in. And that, although a lot of the narrative has been on the 108 legally obtained FULs that ended up in the hands of the wrong persons, in the word minister who was negligent. The main issue is still illegal firearms, is it not?
Yes, and I don't know why, because the issue of legal firearms came up, some of the other feel that the focus is not on legal and the whole aspect of the illegal firearms. Look, yesterday, just through the CARICOM impacts, we have launched a crime and firearm intelligence unit of Caribbean-wise, because all the other Caribbean countries are affected by this whole aspect of illegal firearms. And that thing will set up and will be with CARICOM impact, so all our databases can talk to each other, link in with Homeland Security, link in with the FBI, link in with the ATF, because the focus is on illegal firearms and dealing with the whole aspect of the bond and all the other areas that we know. Right? Remember, just last week, persons were charged. In 2019, persons were charged, and I could assure you very soon, other persons in relation to some of those matters will, in fact, be charged. Some in Trinidad, some abroad. So the investigation, but we have not turned our focus. That's the reason why we have our firearm initiatives going on right now, and we already seized over, probably now we reach 620. Just last night, we seized about 3 additional high-powered weapons illegal in Chaguanas. So we continue. That must reach about 312 high-powered weapons we have seized for the year so far. And I said the average was 67 per year when you look at the other years. So who feel that we change our focus? But why should we not focus on illegal also when we have 90 firearms right now that we sure about have now turned illegal because it is in the hands of the wrong people? So we must ensure that persons who have legal firearms are able to secure it. And the point that I'm constantly raising, and ensure that the people who are the 15 and 20 and things secure it properly also. Because if something happens, is 15 or 20 or 27 firearms going in the hands of criminals?
How often is one required to renew this FUL or the variations for FUL?
It is required to be done yearly.
So given what you've just said, with persons who have 15, 20 guns, your quote was, under my watch, no one will be granted 15, 20 FULs, which means, and in the minister's context of moving back to a restrictive approach, in his words, is it that those persons who were issued 15, 20 will not be getting those renewed?
Well, number one, I saw that their intentions to license those firearms, to relicense those firearms will be very costly. Maybe 5,000 for a firearm or 10,000. I don't know that. I know the government will finalize that. And some decision will be made, administrative decision will be made in relation to that coming from the higher level. Yeah, coming from that higher level, some decision will be made in relation to that aspect, because the Section 22 of the Firearms Act is clear. However, you need to have justification for any kind of seizure and things like that. So we have to operate within the law.
But when you say from higher, what do you mean?
Meaning to say that there's some amendments that need to be made to the Firearms Act that has had to be legislated. And when that is done, that provides the necessary policy and to the Commissioner of Police, then things can be done. But right now we have to operate within the law. This is a country that the law means a lot. We have to follow what the law says. And if you want to do anything differently, you have to get the law amended, whether it's by a simple majority or a two-thirds majority, in order to do certain things. Right? And that is what we will be following.
What is your greatest concern as commissioner heading into the end of this year, the end of November into December, given the murder rate? And although that's not the only crime statistic available, but it certainly is the one that the public pays close attention to heading into the end of the year.
My greatest issue right now is to really address and arrest this violent crime in Trinidad and Tobago, to reduce the number of murders and larceny. The two crimes that we have the issue with right now is larceny of motor vehicles, economically driven, and also the murders. Even the shooting and woundings are done. Right? When you remember, I do my analysis, I do a trend analysis, and I don't just do comparative with the year before, which I am safe to say, with the support of my criminologist colleagues, consider it as skewed years. So I will do a trend and come up with how to really work the performance of the police in relation to looking at the crime. So I will not just compare this year with last year or the year before, because those were skewed years according to the criminologists in Trinidad and Tobago and internationally. Right? So we do that and we do the comparative. So when we look at it, the two main problems right now is larceny motor vehicle and murder.
What is the trend? Just put up. What is the trend or the change in trend with larceny of motor vehicles? And you mentioned a while ago it's economically driven. Expand on that a bit for us, please.
You see, we saw a whole change in the landscape with larceny motor vehicles and robbery of motor vehicles. So I have to say stealing of vehicles by different means. But if it's used by force, it is robbery. And if it's just when the person is not present. But we have a real rise in it, and we believe it's a thriving business. A lot of persons are using it to commit some of the crimes, but other than that, there is a business being run with persons and cutting up of vehicles and all the work. And the change in it is that it has rise significantly on the east-west corridor, when before it was more prevalent in central and south Trinidad. So we have the trend now where mainly divisions are affected, like Port of Spain to a lesser extent, but mainly Northeastern Division, Northern Division, and Western Division. You have a lot of incidents of larceny motor vehicle and certain type of vehicles. And our stolen vehicle squad and our intelligence is doing work, and they have recovered over 110 of those vehicles for the year so far. But we are working on it. And as I said, the other thing is in fact those murders, and
what is the number of vehicles stolen for the year so far in this rise?
Well, I can't say off my head. I think it's around 600 and something. I'll have to get the data from CAPA, and when you said do the trend analysis, you will see probably we have probably an increase by around 30% when I do the trend analysis. If I compare with last year, I might say that there is a 100% increase. But however, when I do my proper trend analysis, I will see that is about that, and that is significant. And then the shift, in what we are seeing, right? But the murders with those triple, double, triple, and quadruple murders is affecting us tremendously. And even though there are less particular incidents of murders, less incidents, you'll have an incident with 2 or 3 persons getting killed. So even though there are less incidents, there are more murders. And I explained that the other day, and I said, out of 40 now, I work it out, again, because we had some others, out of 40 incidents, we end up with about 96 murders. And the years before, if we had 40 incidents, we may end up with 55 murders because you may get one or two may end up being double murders. So you may end up around 55. So even though you have less incidents, but because of the type of weapons that are being used, we are ending up with more murders on our hands. You know, and that is the work that we need to do, you know, continue doing until the rest of the year to get those heavy power weapons off the thing, arrest persons, charge them, make sure we have presence, make sure our response time could improve, make sure that our presence could act as a deterrent to persons out there who will want to commit crimes, and then deal with our scientific and technological aspects to assist us as we go forward. And, you know, the homicide continue doing the work. I don't know if they reach 100, but I think about 100 murders they have solved for the year so far. Not all the murders are from this year. They got 22 from last year and about 2 or 3 from the other years, but they continue doing the work. And as I said, the ballistics have assisted us work that have the ballistic center that we have set up and working forensics have assisted us tremendously, because some of those murders that we might have go begging because of the ballistics work now, they hit the threshold that we can in fact charge persons, you know. So the more firearms we recover and it comes in our hand, we can do the ballistics work and link it to some of the murders. You'll be getting within the next few days you will hear some more results from that work that is being done, you know, and some more murders will be solved, you know.
Commissioner, as we're talking about murders and murders being solved, etc., I know on this Power Breakfast show, we often talk about certain murders that would have happened in the past, and you just don't know what has been the outcome. And I know 2 of them that generally we focus on are Raymond Chukong's murder and Ricardo Welch, Gladiator. And we just don't have any information of whether people were ever held accountable for those murders. And it just seems like so many other murders that have happened in the past, it becomes subsumed in this pit of unresolved issues that just doesn't seem to be getting any further, at least from our perspective, doesn't seem to be getting any further movement in terms of solving those crimes. Are we wrong to think that? But specific.
No, you are not wrong at all. And we have the executive and myself, we have examined that. That is the reason why we have established a cold case unit that works out of the homicide. And then you will see that some of the murders we just saw murders from 2015. So this cold case unit work, and we have a list of different things that can help some of these murders. So they look at the murders, they review the files, they look to see if there's any gaps. We mainly have some retired officers who were specialized in the areas that we brought them back and have them working in the cold case unit, and they will be working on all the things. And if any new evidence come forward, all of that is being done, like how we solved the double murder that occurred in Tobago some years ago, the cold case unit and the work that they did, and well, DNA has assisted us in that also. So we have a cold case unit, and we don't give up because murders is something that we don't really bring it to closure. So anytime new evidence come up, so what we do, we design now a database, put in all the cold cases and all the statements and everything there. They will look at it, new evidence come up, anything new, review it there. The team go through it over and over. They may re-interview persons, and so we have to do it in that way, because you talk about 2 or 3, and I can call several others that we have outstanding. So we are concerned too, and that is the reason why we have established that cold case unit in order to deal with and design a cold case registry with the cases. So anytime we wish to reopen it, we can reopen it and do the investigations.
Commissioner, if I could just shift gears, and you can confirm or refute, my information is that there is still a lot of trafficking of women going on, women being forced into sex work in Trinidad and Tobago. In particular, Venezuelan nationals are vulnerable, in some instances, underage girls. Can you comment on this? Is this an issue in the country still?
I will. Well, probably. Today is Tuesday. Probably later in this week or next week, you all can interview me directly on that, because we have solved so much. We have arrested Venezuelans as gang leaders, gang members involved in that aspect. We have rescued so many of them, and our intelligence people have a lot of work that they are doing. It is, the murders have consumed that whole aspect of what was taking place, and even the good work that the police have been doing together with the counter trafficking unit concerning that issue, and I know you all will hear persons talk about the broken window theory, right? And it's simply this: you look at low hanging fruits, a lot of minor offenses that people normally ignore, and you'll notice the work that we are doing in our Rima area right now, with a lot of those clubhouses and things that a lot of work is being done, and persons being charged for illegal gambling machines. All of that generates all of that. But we are saying, if we can't get at the big offenses, we deal with the small offenses. We have a multi-agency task force right now, and they specialize in that and work with the CTU dealing with that aspect. So probably later in the week or next week, I will talk to you all more about that, because, as I said, it's a very important area. And in some instances, it is fueling some of our murders that you see happening on the ground. It is also linked to some of our murders, and with the whole Venezuelan situation that we have in Trinidad, with most of them who come are good and hard working, but you have some who are involved in criminal activities, and you all have the numbers of how many of them we have charged for firearm offenses and other offenses within the last 2-3 years. Right, so we can have some discussion on that later on in the week.
We will certainly call you next week early to have a substantive discussion on that when you have the data available to you.
Yes, no problem at all.
Finally, the issue of the police victim and witness wellness, division, and its work in intervening in domestic situations and domestic violence situations. We had the unfortunate situation last week where the woman was killed even after she left the home, and how much that is engaging the attention of police. I know the unit had been doing some good work before. Can you give us a sense of how many reports are coming in where that is concerned? Are they on the rise? Are they on the decline? And what the police response is?
Well, we are actually seeing less. When the Special Victims Department started to do the work and go into communities and relate to persons, and they got the confidence, we had a rise because of that. Persons now were willing, they felt confident, they had the secured numbers to call, But as they start to deal with things now and manage it and link with other government agencies who we get in certain communities to do work in combination with the police and our community police, right? You find now there's a reduction in the number of reports that is coming in. We also have a legal clinic with 26 lawyers. When I had made the call for help, who have volunteered, and we have formed a team, and they go from communities to communities, and they educate people on all aspects of law tort and domestic violence and things like that. I think they're going to Tobago next week or later in this month. And that kind of work is helping significantly. And some of them refer to our mediation center that we set up in the old St. Joseph police station. So you'll have some of them will go and they will have mediation and, and to deal with different things. So there is a lot of work being done. But what I'm pleased about is that a lot of the ministries have come on board with us, and that combination of work have taken up some of the weight from the police shoulders, and we get some more experts to come on board as we do the work within the community. So that special victims department is doing good work. Unfortunately, the young lady in San Fernando did not make a report, because that's the first thing I wanted to know when the incident happened. Whether or not she made a report. She did not make a report, and that's the reason why we advise persons in situations to make reports, because we can help. We are not helping in relation to just doing pure law enforcement. We will do the initial counseling. We have brought on civilian staff in our special victims department to assist us. So we do the initial work and then do the referral, and we help families get back together and all of that. So again, Ms. Guy Allen, Ms. Cooper and ESP Cooper and others, Ms. Shereen Pollard and the team they are doing, and Superintendent Bridgel, they are doing significant work. Some of them just came from abroad, from Jamaica to Canada, where they went and do specialized training, and they are back. And that is a real positive for the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service.
Commissioner, thank you for being with us. We hope to speak to you next week when you're available on the domestic violence situation and also the intervention with human trafficking. Thank you for your time and contribution this morning.
Anytime. I really appreciate it.
And we appreciate you making yourself available.
Yeah, really do.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Commissioner. All the best to you.
All right, bye-bye.
All right. Have a good day.
Yeah.
All right. Of course, that was
Recording stopped.
Acting Commissioner of Police, Mr. Jacobs, Donald Jacobs, being with us this morning. A lot of info, gentlemen.
Yep.